I'm Sean Mitchell. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success at Gather AI. I'm excited to moderate this panel. Bryan, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Sean. Bryan Corbett, Vice President of Marketing and Business Development here at Barrett.
Scott?
Yeah, Sean. Scott Hothum, SVP Customer Solutions for Barrett Distribution.
And Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Jim Rapoza, Vice President of Business Process Optimization at Barrett Distribution.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we dive in? Before we get started, just to give the audience a little bit of a background. So we've had a wonderful partnership with Barrett Distribution over the last 2 years. I checked this morning, and they were over the 5 facilities that they've implemented in. We've scanned over 71,300 pallet size locations, as well as in the last month, the team has actually exceeded more than 21,300 flights, or 21,300 pallets. The drones work by flying through our customers' warehouse, imaging each individual location fully autonomously, scanning barcodes and reading text, and then doing a direct comparison with a WMS. All of this then creates a web dashboard that allows teams to actually go through and virtually walk through their warehouse, identify empty locations, and quickly see any sort of exceptions or mismatch when it comes to what is expected from the warehouse management system. What I'll do is I'll switch over to our questions and we'll dive right in. Start with Scott. Do you want to give us a little bit of a background on Barrett Distribution and your business?
Sure, Sean. Thanks. Yeah, I think many of the attendees here probably know Barrett Distribution. Company was started back in the 1940s. So third generation, privately held, third-party logistics company based up in Franklin, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. We operate about 6 million square feet nationwide in 23 facilities, both shared and dedicated operations, operating in 8 different states. And Barrett has really grown over the years as a specialist in not only omni-channel warehousing and distribution, but more recently, as many of us are doing more and more volume with e-commerce fulfillment. So when we look at our overall portfolio, 40% plus of our business is pure e-com. Another 40% would be omni-channel, and then another 20% or so of managed transportation, with a significant amount of volume of managed parcel on behalf of those e-commerce brands. And we do a lot of business in different market verticals, but a handful of those would be in the apparel and footwear space, consumer products, consumer electronics, health and beauty as well. And happy to be here today with you, Sean.
Perfect, Scott. Thank you very much. I think we're quite excited, and I think we very much appreciate the partnership and the ability to enhance what's already a very strong third-party logistics business. I'll switch over to Jim. Jim, what problem are you trying to solve with the Gather AI solution on behalf of your e-commerce brands?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So, as Scott mentioned, much like many others within the space, right, becoming more and more e-commerce focused and expanding that portfolio. And with that, quite simplistically comes the expectation of, order fill rate and on-time shipping, right? Same day shipping and expectations around from our customers are receiving product in some cases the next day or within an SLA is no longer sort of a nice to have. It's an expectation and a requirement. So in terms of having optimized LP accuracy and inventory accuracy, in order to maximize that fill rate and meet our customers' expectations around shipping SLAs, the drones are an integral part of that.
Perfect. No, I think that's appreciated, and I think that's definitely an area that a lot of the folks on the call are seeing as well. The expectation is continuing to grow as far as the rate in which orders need to be filled. Maybe I can switch over to Bryan. Great to understand, why is inventory control so important to e-commerce brands, especially when they're growing quite quickly and trying to scale up rapidly?
Yeah, great question. So I think especially at Barrett and probably most all the 3PLs in the marketplace, you know, when a large brand is growing at scale, and partnering, deciding who to partner with, there's a large amount of trust, right, that they're placing with us, right? The most important thing here at Barrett is our customers, and the most important thing for our customers are their end users who are actually purchasing product, right? So anytime you can improve inventory control, you know, reduce slippage, you know, that has a net effect on the end user, right? The brands are spending a lot of money on cost of acquisition. You know, so a lost customer due to inventory is a bad thing. So that's one of the big benefits that we look for.
Wonderful. And maybe Scott and Jim, if you guys want to join in and just kind of extol some of the virtue when it comes to maintaining inventory accuracy and how that's a win-win both for your operation as well as for your end customer and the e-commerce portfolio specifically.
Hey, Jim, I'll jump in first if you don't mind.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, Sean, recently, you know, we've had several customers that I've been engaged with where, you know, we've been able to eliminate physical inventories due to enhanced cycle counting programs, and you know, using the drones has been a big part of that. And Jim and his team really lead that effort for our company across the board. So we do have robust inventory management, inventory control processes, procedures in every single facility that we operate. And really adding the drones was kind of an enhancement, you know, overall to that. And, you know, we often have, you know, both tactical and strategic goals with individual customers, and many of them are trying to eliminate physical inventories through robust inventory management and cycle counting programs that are signed off on by auditing firms and accounting firms and the rest. So we've got several clients where we've been able to do that. So then as we sort of, you know, as Bryan said, you know, also are working more and more with, you know, high profile e-commerce brands. You know, managing to that fill rate is really important, not only for our own efficiency, but for, you know, maintaining customer satisfaction.
Oh, Scott,
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Sean. No, please.
I was just going to thank for the comment and redirect to you, Jim. So go right ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of the other things I would add internally to that, Scott certainly mentioned customer satisfaction, always top of mind. One of the other things that is critically important to Barrett internally, and Arthur and Tim, Barrett themselves speak about employee satisfaction, right? Just as important. We have happy employees, we have happy customers, and you know, LP accuracy, inventory accuracy, and being able to do your job while you're out on the floor, being able to pick that order, being able to replenish that case, et cetera, just leads to engaged employees and increase in employee satisfaction, which ultimately downstream leads to greater customer satisfaction. And then some other, you know, real foundational things around, you know, decrease in equipment, PIV and such. And then, you know, mitigating the labor challenges that everybody is experiencing out there today, and being able to use those employees that we do retain at higher value activities, and that's a component of it also.
Yeah, Sean, when you think about like some of the larger brands, we're all customers, right? So, you know, on the sales and marketing side, when I think of some of the brands that we have in our building, you know, there's a good chance that almost everybody on this call has purchased product from them, right? And so when we can eliminate, you know, a missed ship, everyone knows what it's like to get the wrong item or have a out of stock item canceled on an order. It's a bad experience, right? So anything that we can do at Barrett to eliminate those pain points for the end user of our customers is a huge win for the brand, right? The brands are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to acquire customers through digital ads, through Instagram ads, through LinkedIn ads. You know, they view this as, you know, one minor mistake can cost them hundreds of dollars. You extrapolate that over time, and they're, you know, so anything that the Barrett team can do to eliminate those pain points, we all can relate with that, right? And so, you know, it's a heavy focus, whether it's drone technology or what Scott was saying about implementing any technologies that eliminate the most important things for the brands themselves is a huge win-win.
Absolutely. No, that makes total sense. And I'd love to unpack that a little bit further. I think one of the questions is, has the increased traceability, I mean, having an image of every single pallet location or in every single inventory location, having that searchability, been impactful for increasing the trust with your end customers?
I think it has, Sean. I mean, it certainly has increased, even it's all downstream, right? Customers are downstream from all of the impacts internally. And having that, the ability to scan your inventory via the portal in a visual way. And in some cases, of course, seeing the movement of a given license plate in the portal from location to location, if that's what the activity has shown. Just internally, the trust in that, in those scans and that visual representation, and the ability to be able to search for something without having to put someone out on a piece of equipment and driving up and down an aisle, right, to go find something. Those internal benefits naturally downstream. Ideally, our customers don't even have to think about that, right? That they're just, the product is getting out the door to their customer correctly, and how we got there is somewhat to them irrelevant, as long as we're meeting, or exceeding, hopefully exceeding their expectations. So that gain has provided a lot of trust internally.
Yeah,
No,
to your point, because of the interfaces that we have with existing customers, whether it's to an ERP or it's to a shopping cart, that inventory sync is critically important, right? And as we become an inventory of record, and we're updating our warehouse management system through receipt to put away to pick, having inventory accuracy is really important, because the customer often, if we've got one item in a bin, we need to make sure we've got that one item in the correct bin, so when that order drops, we can pick it and get it out the door same day and get it out there efficiently. So anything we can do to enhance that process, that's one of the reasons why we partnered with Gather to just kind of continue to evolve our inventory control processes that in turn benefit operations for same day fulfillment.
Excellent. So I guess the follow-on to this is what initially kicked off this drive to bring drones into your facilities. I know you went through and there was an initial RFP, and you looked and reviewed the vendors. We'd love to know where that started.
I mean, the seeds of it, quite honestly, started with some local. We have an advantage in some cases, being our headquarters being based in the Northeast, and a lot of technology companies there, and Barrett has always been open to allowing local companies to come in and test and sort of being first adopters of some technologies. And we had an opportunity to allow that to happen in our Boston facility. And due to a lot of the things we've talked about already, cycle counting is a low to no value activity. And with the greater focus and expansion of our portfolio, like many others, into e-commerce, high velocity, in some cases high value items, the last thing we want to do is build an army of cycle counters in our warehouses. Tim Barrett speaks about aspirationally, our goal should be to not have to count anything at all if we were operating at that level. And that is certainly where we want to get to, and being able to use the technology and seeing some of that testing take place in our buildings, it clicked right away, the value that was there in the drone technology, to be able to meet our customer demands, continue to improve our inventory accuracy at a much lower cost, without having to constantly add labor to it, and in many cases, right, move that labor into more high value activities.
Wonderful. Now, that makes total sense, and we're glad that we've been able to benefit from that need and that partnership. Shifting over to Scott, can you briefly kind of explain how is advanced technology helping to differentiate Barrett in the supply chain space?
Yeah, sure. It's I think for all of us who are 3PL operators on the phone here, the days of it's all about same day, next day shipping, right? So it really becomes table stakes at the end of the day. And our ability to then augment what we're already doing with advanced technology in our warehouse only helps support those initiatives. So we have in some of our shared and dedicated operations, we're running ASRS systems. We're evaluating things like goods to person technology, utilizing person to goods, obviously introducing things like put walls and auto baggers and different things like that to just to help take steps out of the process. In some cases, redeploy labor into more value-add activities, but more importantly, just to increase the really take friction out of the process to be able to ship a higher percentage of orders same day, pushing cutoffs later into the day, and fulfilling our promise to the brands of sort of that perfect order. And in many cases, it all starts with good inventory accuracy, right? If the product's not in the right bin, or the system, as Jim said, the user has to bypass bins to find a location that has a product that we allocated. It has so many up and downstream impacts, and as an organization that's going through a lean journey with our own quality teams, that inventory control becomes even more important. That we want to take waste and take steps out of every process that we have in the facility. And if we can do that through the deployment of systems and technology, we're all in to invest and pilot new types of programs and new types of solutions in all of our shared and dedicated operations.
Yeah, Sean, I think that Scott and JR just both alluded to this idea of certain technologies being table stakes, right? And certain things your customers and brands want to see that you're doing. But to Scott's point, if you're not getting that click to deliver within 24 hours, if you're shipping out the wrong goods, it doesn't matter what technology you're using, right? Because what's the most important for us is our customers, and what's the most important thing to them is their customers. So at Barrett, we take a lot of effort into deciding what kind of technology we're using. Is it going to help the end user have a better experience? So we try not to deviate too far away from the SLAs that we guarantee, the things that we promised our customers, which Scott said we're pushing back same day times, or we're bending over backwards to get these SLAs for these e-commerce brands. So you really want to make sure that you're using some type of technology that's going to assist in that, to create that win-win. Again, not to sound too extreme, but if you're doing all that and you're not shipping orders out on time, and the inventory is inaccurate, unfortunately, a lot of these brands won't care how it's done, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, Sean, Jim leads our solutions design and process improvement teams, and it's all about matching the right technology to the right customer profile, because not every piece of technology makes sense for every customer. So we spend a lot of time digging in on customer profiles and evaluating different types of processes and technology, whether it's enhancements to our own WMS or introducing new types of technology into the buildings. It's got to have a good return on investment. It's got to kind of check a lot of boxes for us, not only financially, but from a service perspective, to make sure that we're overall enhancing the customer experience at the end of the day, just to provide again more and more and higher volumes shipping out of our facilities every single day.
Well, Bryan, Scott, that's excellent. I think we're quite excited to see the continued growth of Barrett, and to be a small portion of how you stay a market differentiator when it comes to your technology and your ability to fulfill to your end customers. Shifting a little bit over to Jim, it'd be great. Given that your team today, and like I said, I checked this morning, nearly 22,000 locations scanned in the last 30 days. And that's including the holiday shutdown. So great work for your team on that. It'd be excellent to understand, how does the system work as far as setting a mission, flying the drone, using the dashboard, and specifically how your team is utilizing both the LP scanning, but also the empty location detection and the exception reporting and visibility.
Yeah, sure. Sean alluded to it, or talked about it very briefly in the opening, and it, not to oversimplify this, but it really is quite that simple. We have an operator that is setting a mission for a drone, and in 2 facilities now, we are actually operating 2 drones simultaneously with a single operator, which, as a side note, doubles our productivity with the drones. But we're really via the tablet, and that Gather provides, we're setting a mission based on an overall cycle count or scanning plan that we have. And the use case, the customer is critical to determining what that cycle plan looks like, right? We have certain customers, we want to cycle through the inventory in once a quarter, or in some very high value situations, once a month. And so we set our missions and our flight plans based on that. We're simply selecting a range of locations in a given aisle for the drone to scan via the portal, and placing that drone in that aisle and sending it on its way. The drone, we have multiple batteries in on the cart that we will swap out on the drone when the battery depletes, and it will continue its mission until it's done and land at the end of that flight pattern. So the operator is in that area monitoring the drone, and again can operate up to 3 at one given time. And once that drone's flight is complete, we'll upload that information to the portal, which matches our WMS or compares against our WMS file that we uploaded, and exceptions are generated, if any. Operator will then work within the dashboard and be able to see that flight schedule, be able to see the results both from a LP match and also a visual representation of what the drone saw in that location. And we're looking, of course, for exceptions. Ideally, we have none, but we're able to call out within the portal itself exceptions only, see what those exceptions are. Was it, is the LP in the wrong location? It calls out, and this is a real downstream benefit for us. It really helps to increase operator discipline out on the floor. Our operators putting pallets away correctly, cases away correctly? Are they applying the LPs in the correct location? And we're able to look at those exceptions. For those that we can't resolve within the portal itself, just by seeing the scans and seeing that maybe that LP is in a different location, that we're able to search in the portal and actually see the visual. We may have to go out and research, but we're able to resolve a lot of them just by working within the portal. Sean alluded to it too. The empty location findings have been super critical and really much more efficient than we would be able to do on our own, both systemic and physical empty locations, right? The drone's ability to capture that at a much higher pace, where we're expecting something to be in a location and that location's physically empty, but the LP is located there, or the reverse of that, where there is a product in that location, but the LP is located elsewhere. The ability to see that visually, search in the portal, make the match, and being able to correct it without having to go out on the floor has been, one of the, I would call it certainly a top result of the drone technology.
So Jim, of course, I have to ask, have you played around with any of these dashboards? I mean, now I personally have made sure you have access to the facilities without having to fly to, I believe you have California, Tennessee, New Jersey, and Massachusetts all up and running. Are you able to keep a better watch of your team this way?
I am able to have much more visibility. My team doesn't want me playing around in there too much. Know enough to be dangerous.
No, absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I can get Scott and Brian to log in, so they can see what's going on as well.
I'm trying to get him
to
get him to just attach a camera to one of the drones so I can use it.
I mean, we can
for my purposes, right?
I guess, Jim, just to kind of take one step further in there, how has this changed the workflow for your team? Both, kind of day to day and also looking at wider labor utilization.
Yeah, I mean, when you just think of pure labor requirements to produce the same amount of work, one of the optimal use cases is that we have found, and Gather has been tremendous in working with us and getting into B&A. Some of our results within B&A, we're scanning, somewhere around 300 or so locations per flight hour. And depending on the number of LPs that's in those locations, that's resulting in, roughly 2,000, 1,800 or so LPs scanned per flight hour. And when you think about what we would have to do that with people, it's not even, it's not comparable, right? This is not an apples to apples. it's so far ahead in terms of what we can do in the same amount of time, and then being able to allow those resources, those team members that would otherwise be on equipment counting, allowing them to just do more value-added activity, actually researching variances, doing process method observations, auditing, training, much more value-added activities rather than counting. And that's been, there's an effort to again try to get to counting only what we have to, and using more these resources to help and support operations more. And we're seeing that every day, getting better and better with the technology.
Yeah, Jim, I guess the other side of that too is it's not just people, it's equipment, right?
Certainly.
So,
Yes.
for counting, you can count the A levels, maybe the Bs from the ground, but when you get up to, C through E or higher, depending on the clear height of your building, and using a man up lift or order picker or whatever it might be, that's a $50,000 piece of equipment, right? And depending on the size of your building and the amount of inventory you have and the frequency of counts, you could have, 4 or 5 of those in a building. And, that's a, $250,000 investment in MHE that, you could either redeploy, in somewhere else in your operation, or frankly, not purchase or lease, right? If we're able to use the drones, more effectively in VNA or in pallet rack.
Yeah, no questions. Great call out. I mean, one particular, example, one of our footwear accounts where we had 6 dedicated cycle counters that were on equipment, counting through our VNA. We're now using a single drone to count all upper, to Scott's point, all upper level product. Actually, quite honestly, the drone in those in some of those aisles is counting the A levels also. But only needing people counting where absolutely required. So, that equipment is either being redeployed to operations where they can actually, use it for actual productivity, production activities around picking, replenishment, put away, etc. Or to your point, Scott, eliminated from the fleet altogether.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I guess just to take that one further, I'm assuming there's a reduction in safety concern as well, just taking people off of automated lifts. And allowing, fewer lifts to be moving around your facility.
Yeah, no question. Less equipment, driving around and people around. It's our safety team is very much on board with that as much as we possibly can. Wonderful.
And I realize the way we've written out these questions, Jim, this is the Grill Jim section, so I apologize. What was the installation like? I think most folks are used to, CapEx taking, several months to implement, and then training being a nightmare. I'd love to understand what your perspective was on implementation. Given that I think we piloted in one and then installed in 5 other facilities. And again, if I get my way, we can get a couple more in this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really quite painless. Sean's team is amazingly flexible. Depending on the needs of our building, whether we're running a single shift or multi-shift operation, the team is the installation implementation team is available whatever hours are least disruptive to the facility. They've been there second shift, they've been there overnight. When we are not able to have them there when there's absolutely no activity going on, really able to work with us in terms of setting a plan on which, aisle by aisle or zone by zone to get things measured, mapped, labeled, etc. So really quite painless. In most, I shouldn't even say most, probably other than the pilot itself. It's normally us delaying installation and implementation. Gather's always very willing and able to move fast for us. And it's more us making sure that we're ready for it. But team comes in very supportive of our operations, works very well with training our teams to the software, to the technology, the hardware. And typically, depending on the size of the building, we've seen anything from a 3 to 6 week deployment time from the moment the team's able to step in the building and start measuring to actual test and handing over flights to our team.
Excellent. No, I appreciate that. And I think I was excited even personally to get to train you, Jim, on how to fly the drone.
Yeah. Again, as long as I do that minimally, everyone else is happy.
I think your team had a sigh of relief when you handed it back over.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Perfect. Well, I'll let you take a pause, catch your breath. Scott and Bryan, it'd be great to understand what benefits you're seeing from a sales and marketing perspective. How are you able to utilize this differentiation to really improve on the sales and marketing front?
Sure, I'll jump in, Scott. We let a sales and marketing guy on a call, a whole bunch of operators. I can be honest and say, look, it looks really cool, right? If you're just talking strictly from sales and marketing and how you're presenting yourself in the marketplace, having a bunch of drones flying around the building looks amazing, right? Now that being said, I probably have a kind of a blended perspective on automation technology and then how it relates to going out in the marketplace and selling it, right? I kind of think more recently of Tesla when they were having those production problems in Fremont. I think a number of years ago, Elon Musk had this vision of a fully automated warehouse with robot arms flying around everywhere. And he comes out and says, it turns out humans are pretty good at certain things, right? And so he said, hey, we need people along with our automation, right? And a lot of the brands that we're working with, they're maturing, their supply chains are maturing, they're becoming smarter, they're understanding the supply chain operations better. And so that cool factor lasts about a week, and they want to see results, right? So for me and my team and working with Scott and our sales team here, having a technology in place that looks awesome from a literature perspective, from a touring perspective, that also has results and again, like affects the end user is obviously, a win-win and a huge lift for sales and marketing in general. So I think it's important to be, employing the right technology with the right amount of people. And I do think there's probably a different, differentiation between the type of deals you're working on. I think, some of the more cost plus centered Fortune 100 type situations might, you're going to have more of a partnership on deploying drones in terms of, investment, CapEx and whatnot. But then, on the D2C side, when you're working with younger, less mature companies, all they care about is what am I paying? Or, how does it affect my customer? Are my customers going to get stuff faster? What's my price? Everyone here knows what that's like. And probably it just depends on the client, but, from the sales and marketing perspective, we focus in on the things that we know are important to that customer. And using drones, if it actually produces results, which as you can hear, we've had some good success with it, win-win. So Scott.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Bryan. And I guess a real world example, I was in one of our New Jersey facilities a handful of weeks ago. We had a prospect that was coming in for a tour, and this guy had been, he was on a road show doing 3 or 4 buildings in that market, and we did our meeting in the conference room and go out and walk the floor, and we didn't tell him that this was going on, but we're walking around, he looks up in the VNA and he goes, what the hell is that? And I said, well, those are our drones that are doing cycle counts, matter of fact. And that stopped the tour right there. We spent 30 minutes watching the drone fly around, talk about the whole process, got one of the inventory people over, they brought it down so he could look at it and everything else, and I mean, listen, when you talk about, innovation and differentiating yourself, from your competition, we feel we did that on that tour. That was a disruptive event, right? Because the guy had been, all over, Jersey, and you go from one building to the next, you can't remember, which building you're within, with which 3PL. I guarantee you, he remembered Barrett. We had a great visit, had a lot of laughs, but it's something he remembered. And at the end of the day, we ended up, winning that piece of business. And I'm not saying it's because of the drones. It was, it was probably because of my tour, but, aside from that, we had a great visit, but, customers love to see things that are new and different, right? We've all got great buildings. You got forklifts, you got RF guns, you got WMS, you got all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not only your people, but more and more, brands want to see what you're doing with new and interesting technology and how you're using that in your building and how it's going to benefit them. This was kind of a real world example of a successful visit when, we never intended to highlight kind of the drones. It was sort of like a matter of fact kind of thing as we're walking down the aisles, but it turned into the focal point of the visit, and I think it was successful.
Scott, that's wonderful, and I'm glad to hear that we could augment your tour, and kind of help to just highlight how Barrett's using technology to stay ahead. I think that's exciting. I think shifting back over to Jim, I know we've touched on several areas of operational benefit, but is there anything else that you've seen that we haven't touched on as far as how your team is using this system to better service your e-commerce customers, as well as how you're actually being able to service the kind of work more efficiently throughout your organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've certainly touched on the high points. I do in terms of what we've learned just in the relationship with Gather and the requirements of the technology to be really to get the most out of the technology. One of the benefits that it takes some time, but it forces operational discipline. Right, it's important for the technology to be for the drone to be flying in a clean area. Right, it's important for LPs to be where they're supposed to be. It's important for pallets and cases and cartons to be put away correctly, and deploying this has really helped enforce some of that operational discipline that at times can be challenging. And quite honestly, to Scott's point, not only I would expect that not only were those customers or prospective customers sort of stopped and by the drone and it's like, okay, what is that? At the same time, I would expect they saw like a super clean and organized aisle because the drone needs that to fly, right? And some of those sort of things that you didn't necessarily think about, prior to deploying it are really impactful overall. When not tough to measure, but having a clean and organized and accurate warehouse, we know what LP accuracy does to productivity. We know it's increasing it, but those minor things where it's exactly where it needs, the LP is exactly where it belongs, is part of that overall equation. The other piece, just with Gather and Barrett themselves and outside of the technology, just the flexibility of Gather in satisfying our needs. Like Barrett and Gather, I think, are kindred in our desire to really be a customer-centric, provider. Has been really great to see. We use the drones in a couple of less than optimal use cases. I mean, we are using drones for double deep locations, and Gather really worked quite hard to be able to adjust to some of our business needs based on that. And it's been a great partnership in that regard also.
Jim, it's been a pleasure working with you and your team. And I think I'm excited. I'm excited that we can enhance Barrett across the board and really help you to do what you're doing much more quickly and more efficiently. I think it's entirely our responsibility to make sure that we make you successful. So I think you covered the following question, which was what were you surprised about working with Gather AI? I don't know if you have anything else beyond there before we move on.
Yeah, my apologies. I kind of combined those. No, I think, other than just reiterating that, right, it really has been, the ability to react to our needs, to enhance the software based on some of our requests and very, very specific needs, and even in a given building that then can be deployed, elsewhere. It's been quite specifically with our New Jersey region, where our ICQA manager there has been involved from day one, from the very first pilot, has been really a great partnership with Jesus and Bridget on your side to, we like to be that guinea pig too, to test new functionality and improvements to the technology and test new drones. So it's been a good relationship in that way too. I'd like to be out on the leading edge of that.
And Sean, just in my experience working with Gather the past month or two on the marketing and sales side, you know, it's my feeling that we all have alignment to the end user, right? And so like that's so important from my perspective, because you know we're out winning new business or maintaining current customers. You know, you want to be working with a robotics company or, you know, an AI driven company that's also in alignment with the end user, right? It's all about the customer here at Barrett, right? So it's not just about the 3PL, what we want. It's not about what necessarily what the brand wants. It's about the person getting the package at their door and having the right product inside in a quick and efficient manner. So, you know, I think a lot of technology robotic companies might not understand that either, right? And so even setting up a webinar like this or discussing the points of emphasis, it's all focused on the end user, right? And what are the results? And so it's been nice to work with the people at Gather who also understand that, you know, because like I said at the beginning, we're all customers, right? In this e-com space, we all know what that looks like. So that I think that's a huge value add for Gather.
Bryan, absolutely, and I think it's been a real pleasure working with you directly over the last month and kind of looking at how do we work together on branding and sales, and I think you hit it right on the head. You know, our core mission is to be people first. It's not how do we solve this problem. It's how does this problem affect you know, the individual who's using the system, who's relying on the system, and how do we really put a face to anything that we're trying to solve. And so, you know, Jim brought up multi-deep, said, okay, this is a problem that our customer needs. How do we make their life simpler? How do we help out? And we saw that clearly with Barrett and how you position yourself with your end customers as well. And I think we've been very fortunate to learn from you as well. I'll wrap up the last of the pre-prescribed questions. Going to open it up to the whole Barrett team. You know, in regards to sales and operations, what advice would you give to a warehouse today who's looking to implement drones? And what, you know, where do you think they'd benefit and start, and what are the right questions for them to ask?
Yeah, I'll start there. You know, not to oversimplify, you know, everything, but I assume that many of you are facing some of the same challenges. And if, you know, if we start at the optimal use case, and I'll sort of define those as, you know, V&A case storage and single pallet, you know, racking, you know, it's a win. You know, that's my advice would be to look into it, and because it's impactful, and you know, you'll see, and we've experienced this in every deployment, even with operations who feel they had sort of the best inventory accuracy, you're going to see a decrease in it to start. The drone is going to find issues that are out there that you're not aware of, or won't get to until several weeks out, because you're using you know, people, and you're going to see a decrease, and then you're going to see a pretty strong increase in every building we've deployed, other than one right now because we've just started and we're actually seeing that decrease. We've experienced you know, improvements over the course of this year where we've deployed drones, and again, to Scott's point earlier, you know, technology is part of the equation. It's not the only variable, but we've seen improvements in DPPM, upwards in some cases of up to 70%, and that was even in a high you know, a highly accurate facility. You know, that movement from, you know, 99.67 to 99.9 from a DPPM perspective is about 70%. And, you know, if you have optimal use cases, if you're struggling with labor challenges, you know, operational discipline, you know, those are things that the drone can help you solve.
Thank you very much. I think we really appreciate the insight. We'll switch over to a little bit of the Q&A that's been sent out. And for those questions that we do not get to, we will send out email response as well. But I'll paraphrase the first one here from Cam. What impact has space utilization had on not blurring the product and markings outward facing? Meaning, have you had any issues with the drone not being able to fly in a narrower environment, or to not have product outward facing so that it can read the inventory?
If I understand the question, I would, again, I would say that we haven't had problems with the drone flying in any specific aisle, other than, again, if we're not disciplined, right, to be able to have, we don't want pallets sticking out, as an example, as one, very real, physical challenge, right? So, we have operators in the area, so if there is an issue with the drone being able to navigate around something, we can land the drone, correct the issue, and then move on. So no concerns with the technology there. We're flying in VNA, which is something we've been pushing, and Gather's been great to get even to narrow aisles, is ultimately the goal. I'm not sure.
But Jim, I think the assumption is that you're either dealing with single SKU pallets, right? Or locations that, if they do have multiple SKUs in the locations, they all have to be facing, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think I think I'm reading some of the questions here, and I'm trying to maybe infer a little bit what they're talking about, because I know some 3PLs might mix SKUs in a bin, make SKUs in a pallet location, mix SKUs on a pallet.
Sure.
And if some of those license plates are facing out, yeah, they can be counted, right? But if you've got 60 cases on a pallet and you've got 60 SKUs in a location, right, you probably would have to change your storage methodology in order to have those be captured.
Yeah, agreed. No, yeah, exactly. And thanks for sort of, helping with help frame the question. Yes, if, I mentioned the less than optimal use case around double deeps, right? And in that particular use case, we're talking about a single LP per pallet, but we have a pallet in the backspace, right? The drone doesn't scan that, right? Can't see that. And that's where we worked with Gather as an example to set up business rules around those pallets in the back location to not count them as exceptions, but call them out that, hey, there's a double deep pallet there in location. The WMS is expecting it. We can't scan it, but it is there, and we can react accordingly. But we've also found that in normal course of movement of those pallets, right, that we're able to scan as product is moving. And if that back pallet doesn't move ever, then so be it in some respects, right? But yes, we have certain situations where, for example, serialized product where we have multiple LPs, multiple cases on a pallet with one single LP per case that are not all forward facing. So it's not a use case that we deploy the drone. Yes, yeah. Thanks, Scott.
And I think to tag on this, I'm going to combine a few questions here. Today, you're using the drones for reading the LPs that are outward facing. How are you mixing this with the need for case counting? And is there advantage to having the drone taking higher vantage images to see kind of the total number of cases in a pictorial means?
Is there an advantage? Absolutely. And we certainly, I mean, we're not currently using case counting. Obviously, you and I have talked about that quite a bit, and and we certainly want to get there, and that would be next level for us. Right now, the drone is taking that scan. We're matching that LP against a location, and we're basically doing a location accuracy validation. Right. Our next expectation, our next desire would be able to do case counting. And so we're working with Gather to take that next step in the right use case.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's challenging for me to not answer these questions. I have to figure out how to feed them to you, so I don't say the answer. So good question for everybody across the board. How do you see this technology growing and transforming warehouses in the next 5 years? Where do you see this going in terms of utilizing both the drone as well as just the computer vision and kind of machine learning to better enhance your processes?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. Maybe I was talking to one of our customers yesterday, who their technology team, this gets into sort of the word of the month here with the chat GPT, their tech team is sort of playing with that technology to help them with inventory planning, and looking at demand planning, and and frankly, it's a bit of a, they're calling it sort of a skunk works. They're just sort of playing with, they've loaded in old data, and they're trying to sort of figure out if that type of AI can be more accurate and more helpful from a predictive standpoint, to figure out what inventory they need, and when and where. So we've talked even internally about, okay, could some of that AI be utilized when it comes to wave planning, right? So like in our own facilities, we've built logic within our warehouse management system that we know optimal wave plans, based on certain criteria for certain customers, right? And if, and as, AI takes more hold within facilities, or within a warehouse management system that might, be selling, a type of AI, you could foresee a time when, the bots will learn over time, based on whether it's a D2C, order file, or a B2B order file with these different attributes. Here's the optimal wave plan to get the most efficiency, out of your pick, and I think there's going to be more and more of that type of stuff that will take hold. And there was, blockchain was like all the buzz, several years ago, and how that was going to transform, the supply chain. I think AI has much more practical uses where we could see, that being deployed, over the next, couple of years in really a concrete way that would benefit, all of us, in driving efficiencies and deploying new types of technologies. Because, I think we all read about like Google Glasses and all this kind of stuff that we're going to see in the warehouses. Well, I haven't seen them. But this is one, where it seems like there's a lot more practical purpose that we could all see, within our own buildings, in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think one of the other interesting thing to think about in the future too, there's a real trend to create digital twins of your facilities also, right? And be with the AI machine learning, it'd be interesting to see if drones could help in that regard. Right now it's a matter of someone and engineering and trying to create that layout in CAD, and then converting and using the proper software, and takes lots of time and hours of commitment. And it's just something I've thought about in the past. As we're looking to get there, could there be an advantage to having drones in the warehouse to aid in that?
Absolutely. Shifting back to today and the current usage, are you seeing your teams using the drones on shift while other operations are happening? Are you scheduling time off shift? Have you seen issues with other traffic, either with individuals trying to pick from the aisles while scanning is going on, or anything of that nature?
For the most part today, we're on shift. We try to be strategic in terms of the time of day. Where we do have second shifts, where we're doing most of the flying in the second shift, where we're not quite as active, smaller crews, less outbound. We have certainly utilized off shift hours, but primarily right now, mostly during working hours. We haven't had a huge impact in terms of disruption to operations, where our ICQA team works with operations, and we sort of schedule, they have visibility into that flight plan, and we adjust accordingly to be as least disruptive as we can. So it has not been a huge factor at all in any way.
Excellent. No, that's great. And then I think you touched on this earlier, as far as you're currently scanning around 300 locations, and I know there's always the question of given that how far battery technology is today, you do need to change batteries. So just if you can kind of reiterate how your team is currently using recharging and placing fresh batteries to get that 300 plus pallets per hour, or locations per hour.
Yeah. So when we deploy the drone, we have an additional it's 4 or 5 batteries, if I'm not mistaken, present and fully charged. The drone is deployed, and somewhere within that 20-minute or so time frame, is where that battery would need to be changed. The drone will land. I mean, it's a simple moment to disconnect battery number one and connect the second battery and then start recharging that first one. So it is a minor interruption to then be able to send the drone back on its way to complete the flight mission. So it is not impactful at all to the productivity of the drone.
Wonderful. Perfect. And as you said, as you use multiple drones, we do also scale the batteries and the recharging capability as well, so that you can keep running nonstop throughout the shift. I'm seeing a fair number of questions about the case counting as well, so I may jump in here just to say that Gather does provide a case counting estimation based on the tie-high stacking norm that's provided for each individual pallet. So we can count the total number of cases on the face and then make an assumption about, based on the total number of layers that we count, how many cases are actually on that individual pallet. But it's all at the whim of actual proper layer by layer counting, and it will give a percentage variance to the most complete layer. So it won't give a specific count, given that it's possible for cases to be loose on the top, or if you have a pyramid or stacked pick. But if you do have consistent flat layers and you're looking for, hey, how off is the WMS versus what we're seeing in the location, that's something that can be done. Perfect. I think that's been the majority of questions that I've seen coming through here. I think the last one, let's see here. Are there any specific KPIs that you're using to measure success with the technology? Is the last one I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, it's the leading metric that we monitor is LP accuracy. I mean, it's a foundational metric for us, like it is for many people. But again, not just around inventory accuracy, but what it means in terms of our downstream impact to order fulfillment, meeting SLA, and employee satisfaction. So that is the leading metric. I mean, we do monitor and watch costs per scan, comparatively speaking, to what it would mean if we were still using equipment and a person. We've seen a reduction in some cases of, again, up to about 60-70%, in V&A greater than that, certainly in the cost per LP. So that's something that we watch from a sort of obviously a CPU perspective, but in terms of what the operators and the team looks for out on the floor, it's really LP accuracy.
Perfect. I appreciate that. As we're wrapping up, Scott, Bryan, Jim, any last notes or comments that we didn't get to? Otherwise, I do want to thank you. I think this has been super helpful to kind of inform on the IWLA team, as well as to hear that my team is doing well for Barrett, and the partnership has continued to grow strongly.
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank you for arranging this. Obviously, thank the IWLA for putting this on as well. It's been great to be part of it, and happy to continue and expand our partnership.
Yeah, I would echo that, Sean. Appreciate the time, and glad to be part of the whole process. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Same here, ditto.
And I'll pull back up the screen. We're excited to see everybody at IWLA in Palm Springs. And if any of those on the call, I'll put the shameless plug in here, are interested in drones. This is our contact information, as well as the contact information for everybody at Barrett. And any questions that you have that we didn't get to, or if you are interested in speaking to Barrett about their top tier service when it comes to third-party logistics, I think they'd be very excited to speak with you as well.